make sure I get my mic turned on. So sorry about that. All right. Vice Chairman Carol Wagner, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Robert Durgill,
Present.
Jody Rich, Brian Lewis, Tim Spiegelglass,
Present.
Daniel Rosenberg,
Present.
and Sam Wallace,
Present.
and myself, Carol Wagon.
Good,
I'm
good.
fair.
Let it also be known that Carlos Trejo, the Olivet's, your title, Carlos, the Director of the Planning and Community Development Department is in attendance, as well as Dawn Doty. Senior Planner, thank you very much. As well as Missy, our City Council Liaison, Councilmember Missy Waldman is in attendance. Sorry, I'm a little rusty. I just got back from vacation, so it's taking a little while for me to get back into the swing of things, so. Okay. Just to go over the commission procedures, just to let you know, we'll go through each agenda item one by one that's listed on the agenda. There'll be a staff report to kind of review the submission and kind of the status of that petition. There'll be time for the commission members to then discuss back and forth between staff. If we have any questions. That time, we typically bring on the petitioner to review what changes have been made or go over any details. And then afterwards, we do allow for public comments to be made to go through that. We also have time for general comments. It's typically in the beginning. It's going to be after our comprehensive plan update that we'll have next. And that's a time for if anybody has any public comments that are not related to anything on the agenda, to come up in front of the podium, and you'll have 3 minutes. We try to limit any public comments or general comments to no more than 3 minutes to be respectful of everybody's time and to make sure everybody's opinion gets heard. Okay. We do ask you when you approach the podium to state your name and address for the record. And if you're attending via Zoom, we ask you that, there'll be a button to raise your hand. And then we'll bring you onto the online panel. We do ask anybody who is brought on there to make sure that they turn on their camera as well as their microphone, and it'll speed things up. Lots of times people forget about that, and we sit for a while we try to communicate that to everybody. So look, when you do come on, the default settings typically are for no camera and no mic. So make sure you look for that to try to click those on, which will speed things up. Good. Carlos, am I missing anything?
No, Chairman, I believe you got everything covered.
Okay,
Thank you.
good. So we'll move on to item number 3, the comprehensive plan update. Carlos?
Chairman, I just want to remind everybody, the city is in the process of updating its comprehensive plan, which was adopted back in 2006 with supplements from 2012, 2016, and 2018, and then the latest in 2020. And this will be a complete overhaul of the current plan, to reassess our visions, our goals and objectives for land use planning and all of that, and will extend beyond just the Olive Boulevard corridor and the industrial parks as the current plan does. This one will be a little bit more holistic and talk about residential opportunities, environmental opportunities, sustainability and equity in the same process. There has been several community meetings that have already been held along with the survey. We've had over 300 respondents on the surveys. Over 125 people attend the last community visioning workshop. In there, the results of those surveys and the workshops are posted on the comprehensive plan website. I encourage everyone here to take a look and see the results. Chairman, I did provide a presentation at our last meeting. I won't go through that whole process today, but in the assessment of those results, there was strong support for our current vision. A lot of positive comments regarding the progress we've seen on the corridor and the investments and improvements that have gone there, and then some concerns in addition to that. A lot of comments for the city expanding and focusing on our pedestrian and multi-purpose trails, especially interconnecting neighborhoods as opposed to just getting to Olive Boulevard in itself. The survey results, like I said, over 350 respondents, which is very good. in there. We did get demographic data within those results. And the consultants now are engaging in stakeholder interviews to address specific demographics and ethnicities that did not respond as strongly as they're reflective in our community. Those will begin next week. There is a roundtable discussion with Asian Americans, another with Black and African Americans, and then a third one with renters. And then we'll also have a roundtable with some business representatives in there. And again, trying to really reach out and be all inclusive in the process of the comprehensive plan. The consultants are working on the drafts for housing and transportation components of the plan. We'll be getting those throughout August, throughout this month, of course. And then I remind all council members and council liaison and plan commission members that on our first September meeting, which is the 7th, it is a joint workshop with the council and the commission in there. So please try to keep your calendars open for this opportunity to provide your input along with our council members in that process. Beyond that, again, Chairman, a lot of information is available on the website. I urge residents and people here in attendance to be active and part of that process. The long range plan really asks, where does all of that want to be in the next 20 years? So while, that's a long time frame and a very important opportunity to direct how our community improves itself in its process. So,
Carlos, are all the surveys and questionnaires, are those all complete now or closed?
no, well, from this point, yes, the collection of the community-wide survey and then the other supplement surveys that were online are closed. There will be another survey that should be coming out. I don't have the specific dates. I'm not sure if it's late August or early September. And there, I believe it'll be before September because we're trying to coordinate that with our next newsletter to make sure that residents are informed about that opportunity.
Good. We do highly encourage everybody to get involved with this because this does help plan our future, and to get more people's, to get more input it's essential for it. So take a look at it. It's good to have an audience here, with people here. Sometimes we come to our meetings and there's no one. So it's good to have it. So we want to take this opportunity to, make sure to let you guys know, as well as, if you have any neighbors or friends, to make sure they know about it as well. Okay, good. So at this point in time, Carlos, did you have anything else?
No, sir, that's all I had.
Other questions or comments from commission members? Okay, we'll move on to item number 4, which is public comments. Are there any public comments that are not related to agenda items in the audience today? Seeing none, Carlos, will you please check the online to see if anybody?
I do have one person online, and if there's any public comments regarding a non-agenda item, if you can show your hand, it's generally located at the lower center part of your window for Zoom. And if I can just have a second if there's any delays.
Yeah, no worries.
And I think we're okay, sir.
Okay, good. So we'll move on to old business and item A, 595 Dealman Road. Carlos?
Chairman, this item was introduced to the commission on June 15, 2023. There was several questions and inquiries as in part of the process. In summary, it's a subdivision, 3-lot subdivision of an existing property that is 3.26 acres. One parcel will be right off of Dealman Road. To the north is the multi-purpose trail along the city right away. And then off of White Rose on the western side, 2 lots would be created, both accessing White Rose Lane, which is a public street. And there, the properties would meet the dimensional requirements of the SR district, including length, width, and end area. But the commission is evaluated it in the form of a preliminary subdivision plan. So at this point, the commission is making an assessment of ensuring that these lots are buildable, suitable, and have minimal impact on surrounding and within the property grounds and the surrounding area in there. By code, the commission has 60 days to act, and we're still in the process of the review. We've received some additional information from the petitioner, as in the last discussions, there was concerns regarding providing access to the multipurpose trail, which was initially done in the form of an easement, but in consensus of the commission, there was discussions of actually putting the trail plans together in terms of putting construction specifications and documents for that as part of the process. We also had discussion about excess land area along the creek on the north side, which the petitioner is willing to dedicate to the city of Olivet. What that would do, again, it's not a usable area in there. It would be protected by both the stream buffer ordinance or water management requirements. And in the future, it has the potential to be an actual floodway, and that means actual water. It would be designated as a floodway in the FEMA maps in there, so that it doesn't provide any immediate purpose for the city. It gives us some opportunities to have some of that control and to look at broader stormwater mitigation managements in the future without having to acquire property or disrupt existing property improvements in the process. Petitioners agreed to grant that to the city as part of the planning process in there. The other issue is because the current floodplain maps only went to the east side of Dealman Road. The new maps extend the flood analysis west of Dealman Road and include certain good chunks of this land area here. So we wanted to do a couple of things. One is make sure a house fits. Two, make sure that the house is cognizant of the floodplain elevation, especially the basement level in there, and trying to balance all those as we go through a preliminary subdivision plat, in which when you do a plat, you may have the petitioner actually build the homes, or all the petitioner wants to do is create the lots so they can put them on the market and have a different developer. So we try to balance, not getting too specific to tie the plat to a specific home, because there should be flexibility in that process, both whether it goes on the market or to if it's just intended for the prospective buyer in the process. Couple of things that become a dilemma here. One is this was introduced on June 15th. By code, the commission has 60 days to act, and that 60th day will fall before our next meeting in there. And there's still some outstanding issues that need to be addressed in here. One, again, is the floodplain. Now, these are the new proposed FEMA maps because they have not been adopted yet. And these maps came out around 2017, I would venture to guess, and we're still waiting to determine when the adoption will happen. Typically, the process would happen quickly, but this has been dragging on for quite some time. We do know that they are in the process. Not sure the delay was an impact because of the pandemic and changes in things, but we're still kind of waiting. So in theory, this is not floodplain, but we know eventually tomorrow, someday, it could be designated as floodplain area. So we need, you can't put a structure within a floodplain. But again, the dilemma is that this really doesn't exist, but we're planning. We're making the assumption it's going to come in and make sure that, again, that this lot and any improvements within any of these three lots are developable. So one of the things we've been asking or trying to get from the developer is to get the information that's available on the FEMA site. And on the FEMA site, you can see the proposed amendments to the floodplain map. Right now, it ends at Dealman. This is all a new extension that will happen. And this blue area represents areas that are potentially impacted by what we call the 100-year flood, or we're supposed to now term 1/10 of 1% probability of flooding in there. And you can see lot 3 here. Now, this is not to scale, but it's to give us some type of indication on the impact that elevation of flood area that they would be designating would have on lot 3. and the ability of having a buildable area within there. Keep in mind again, and I'll stress this over and over, this does not exist, but has a potential to exist sometime down the future. In that process, the way these borders or boundaries are determined is through a flood elevation, and the cross-section elevation that is shown for this area and stops at this area, FEMA does not go any further to the west, is 621.6. So anything less than 621.6 within this cross-section would be within the 100-year floodplain. Anything out gets into the 500 and floodplain areas. So what we've been trying to get the developer is to impose that 621.6 elevation into this, into their preliminary plat, so we have a better understanding where that impact would be in there. So what we've looked at is that the developer has engineered that they would be regrading that site, which is okay, because right now that floodplain does not exist. I'll stress that again. But when we overlay the 621.6 elevation as it currently exists, it's illustrated in this highlighted yellow line. And then you can see here's a street curb, the right-of-way edge, the 25-foot setback, and the amount of ability of buildable space within lot 3. Based on that 621.6. The petitioner proposes to regrade that upper area and push that 621.6 all the way back here where I have that 622. So a majority of this lot here would be at 626, well above, at least at grade level above that flood elevation by almost 5 feet in there. For comparisons, I threw the 628 elevation because that's where lot 2 is, and it's well above that segment that's impacted. Now, this is okay because, again, this line has not been designated yet. Once those maps are adopted, the maps will be outdated if improvements occur here, but this will still become the elevation that determines the flood, what is within that floodplain. And what the petitioner is proposing here is to shift that elevation back out of that and create a buildable area for a new home. And we'll get into a little detail on that aspect in the next slide. So here, we kind of impose that there is the probability of putting a new home within the recontoured area of this property. The garage will have to go on the south side because there's an inlet right here and a swell system that diverts some of the stormwater improvements down to the rear here. So this would be a typical buildable area in there. But what we have to be cognizant of, again, is the 621.6 because that can be adjusted, in its placement, but the number is going to exist. So if you were to create a basement floor at 622.0, which is this far elevation here, and do a standard 9-foot basement, your top of foundation would be at 631. And if you look at that top of foundation at 631, that's about the same height and grade as the far southern corner down here. And that's a lot of fill, and that's a lot of alteration. Now, the design and the lifting of that elevation can be done with minimal fill adjustment, but as part of the design process. So you can have a home that does stick up, and you can surround it with a nice porch deck or in there and have that foundation exposed, but concealed by an open covered porch or something. So there's ways to do that, but without that, then the simple adjustment is to mount, and that's what we want to try to avoid, and that's a lot of fill. So it's bringing in questions is, we recognize there is an ability to develop lot 3, but you want to give as much flexibility as possible, but I think a lot more information is necessary. These are my numbers, and my guess is that I'm not an engineer, and I'm not going to attempt to play one, but I do know the elevations that are noted on the FEMA website. They're publicly available, and we've been asking for that to be placed in there. And I think they did, but not the original in here. And that's where that line would run through in there
Did you add that line?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay.
And so, and that's easy just to kind of highlight it following the 622 contour.
Yeah, yeah.
So we need more information about lot 3 and how is that being adjusted? How is that basement floor gonna extend above that 621.6? And there, and what impact that's gonna have to the surrounding top of foundation that's gonna be above grade.
Carlos, I'm also concerned about, I guess it's lot 2, the one that's gonna access off of Dealman.
This is pre-existing.
So what does the floodplain look like as a proposed?
It would kind of run around, you see this dark line here? It kind of comes in. It would be behind this line here.
Okay, so there would be enough buildable area on that lot. as
That
long
is
as
correct.
it's
And
there.
there's already an existing dwelling unit here that at this
Right.
point they've indicated they don't plan to change and there. If that home was ever raised and rebuilt,
Mhm.
remember their side yard setback is going to be based on this width. And that house is going to be here along these sloped areas because they wouldn't benefit. They wouldn't be able to build as close as they are to that south property line. So that being said, again,
Carlos, Carol had another question.
go ahead.
So I'm concerned about a couple of things. One is physically changing the proposed floodplain area. Because that usually means that you're pushing the water on something else. And I'd want to know, is that really the case here? And the other is that we know the rains are getting fiercer. So I wouldn't want to turn back the hands of time, so to speak, and be more lenient on the floodplain. So I've got, future concerns about
Mhm.
that. I mean, I'm not prepared. I don't think there's enough information for me to vote on this at this point.
Well, we're still waiting for more information.
Well, and that information, I think we have outlaid here, but I think it just leads to questions where you do need a civil in attendance to address these concerns and how that would be addressed. How would that be modified or complied with within this thing? On some of it, again, in actuality, this does not exist. And you are correct, Commissioner Wagner, that in a flood area, when you move something, it's just like a tub. If you bring in something, then the water level goes up somewhere else to accommodate for that mass that comes in. When this map is, if and when this map is approved, then that would be certainly the case. But this is not an approved map yet. But I think it behooves us to be cognizant that that elevation is going to exist no matter what. And those improvements need to be able to accommodate and meet or exceed the elevation minimums that come into play. When you go through the FEMA site, you'll note there's a lot of comments, and even from the city's perspective, we kind of argued that we haven't seen that extent of flooding even with the recent rains in this area, and we think that it's based on the culvert size that's underneath Dillman Road, which was recently improved in there. We do think that, given the way this now outlays, that there are opportunities for future grant fundings to expand or put like a water holding basin here that can help accommodate us upstream, especially like in the areas of Cherry Tree and Harvest Lane, all the way up to Ashmont, which we've had some, which is a collection area for a lot of stormwater in there. But right now it is flowing. We did question him about the extent along with some other areas in there. And as of yet, we have not seen any changes incorporated to the map. So,
I guess, I mean, one other option to consider would be if they wanted to do something like a house on stilts, so you could flow the floodway underneath.
No,
Um, And I mean, I've seen that done. I don't know that I advise it, but
Yeah.
it's an option. They're done a lot down on the Merrimack.
just looking at the amount of blue that's there and the amount of dirt that they're gonna push. It seems like the amount of dirt that they're gonna push is gonna have a minimal impact on, the extent or, the rise of the rest of that. So. And the civil engineer, if he was in attendance, I think might be able to, explain that. So I don't see it like if you move that, it's gonna increase it now up 2 feet, you're probably talking inches. So if you use, the 622 as kind of, with a conservative approach, the line that you have should be fine.
mhm.
Yeah, I know, but I think I'd feel better if we had an engineer
Totally.
look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
The other aspect on this would be, of course, they were willing to dedicate this strip of land on the northern end to the city. And again, it's pretty much where the creek rut kind of runs through in there. And that gives us more control and the ability to maintain and provide the protection that would be through the code. And if we do any future stormwater mitigation improvements, it gives us an opportunity of not having to acquire property during that process. So there is some, there is some value in the dedication of land, but in theory, this is not usable land. And again, if it wasn't dedicated, the side yard setback for this lot starts to increase. By dedicating that, the way we measure side yard setback is reduced. So it actually benefits lot one to give away that property in that process. The other thing we talked about was first we started with asking the developer to create a pathway trail connection from White Rose all the way to the multi-purpose trail that's already in the right of way, the St. Louis water right of way. In there, there was some concerns about cost, and then about the engineering and crossing that would be, I don't want to call it a creek because it's not designated as a creek, but crossing that ravine.
A gully.
And that. So in lieu, we asked the developer if they would design and get it shovel ready, get design plans that would be shovel ready. That gives us the opportunity to either find public funding through our coffers or go out for grants, for that. And what that does, it puts us closer and improves our long range objectives about improving pedestrian connectivity throughout our community. And we showed you the map and how this would improve, how quick you can get north to Olive by providing that opportunity. So residents from White Rose wouldn't have to go all the way down to Old Bonham, go all the way down back to Dealman and then head up. This would cut that time by a third because they're no longer going south to go north. And the estimated cost, and you have a copy of that just came in yesterday, was $8,500 to do the construction drawings on behalf of the city in there. I did give that to our public works director and our parks director for review in there. And as of yet, I have not received any comments in there. So we want to take a look at the analysis. It gives us a better understanding of what at least that cost is. We don't know what the cost of actually doing the work would be, but it'll get us one step forward of putting us in that. The other issue, of course, we talked about were the floodplain map amendments. They're not official yet; they're preliminary. But we got to be cognizant of the grades of the elevations, because the elevations won't change, but the contour and the grading has the opportunity to do so, and that's what they're proposing here. We talked a little bit. We need to see the lot setbacks on these three properties. One is to make sure lot one understands their side yard setbacks that are going to be imposed on the north and south, because that existing home may become non-conforming in there, and that's okay because it's existing. but it may impact any future improvements, or if it ever was redeveloped, the placement and positioning of a new house. And the same goes true with lot 2, to ensure that it has sufficient setbacks in place. We do know both lots 2 and 3, the 2 new lots, are over 100 feet in width, and at a minimum would have at least 12-foot setbacks on each side. But we'd like to see those illustrated, so when the home design does come in, they're cognizant of how that would be outlaid in there. The other thing is the code requires that any tree in excess of 8 inches needs to be identified. And right now they're showing there is a large tree area, but not the identification of the trees in there. Now, the commission has provided some flexibility in that, but I think we're hearing more and more from our residents concerned about tree mass and removals. And again, this is an opportunity to stay consistent with the intent of the code and provide that information. There's also some additional little items that need to be provided in terms of utilities under chapter 405 and in there. So where does that put us now? And the commission is in a position that it has to do something today. There are 2 options. The petitioner who is here can grant the commission an extension in there. In essence, it gives them more time to get the information we need. If we are not given an extension, then my recommendation to the commission would be you always have to do a positive motion. So a motion to approve, but to deny the petition without prejudice. I think this is a good subdivision and has a potential for bringing these 2 new lots into our housing stock in there. And the opportunity is there. We just don't have enough information to make that final assessment and really know the impacts. I'd be glad to answer any questions, and I know we do have the petitioner and the property owner here.
Any questions for Carlos? Commission members? No, seeing none. Yeah, I think bring on the petitioner would be great. Remember to state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Arthur Cotes from 7739 Davis Drive. Regarding this submission, I mean, at this point, it's preliminary submission to subdivide the property. And I heard the concern about the floodplain, and it's also a future one that may be gonna be adopted, maybe it's not gonna be adopted. Even so, it will be adapted. We talked with the engineers and did the grading on the property that even the basement gonna be out of that elevation without doing too much to disturb. We're not touching lot 1 at all. So that's gonna be all will stay as is. We're talking about lot number 2. And there are multiple homes that been built with the walkout basement and the grading on the front, on the side, just getting adjusted just to meet the walkout basements. And that's one of those scenarios that we have here. That's the house gonna have walkout basement with, you know, a little bit raised front yard. And we do have enough height with the city code, how much we can go up. Even we will adjust the grade in the future, we're still gonna be under that 35 feet line. So I just don't see, I mean, I see that you're raising the concern, the new house could potentially be in the floodplain if it will be adopted. But we are gonna develop those properties as well, and we'll make sure that it's going to be out of that plane. And on the next submission, when we're going to submit for the new home, we can provide all the other information as tree plan, swales, how the water going to be managed, and everything else. I mean, at this point, it's just subdividing of the existing property to 3 lots.
Anybody have any questions or comments? Go ahead, Kurt.
So you're prepared to to give us all the items that Carl suggested if we do an extension?
No, he sounds, go ahead, sir.
I mean, we'll provide you everything. I just don't, I mean, logically, like, we can approve this as, you know, just as a plot plan. And when we're gonna submit for the houses, for the proposed homes, we're gonna show all the other details that needs to be shown.
So Carlos went over a list of items that we still need, and I know I'd like to see them before I approve a plat. So
But Carlos, we don't necessarily need to have these items just to get approval for lot subdivision. The items like trees and other stuff, you need to show them when you're submitting actual for the house.
They are done in both. So if the lot exists, you'll be providing it. If the lots are being proposed, you provide it as part of the preliminary plan.
But this lot not exists.
Correct. But, you know, within the code, it notes what needs to be provided in that preliminary plan.
Yeah,
You know,
but
the code doesn't take into consideration that the petitioner is also going to be the developer in that process. So
yeah, but in the same time, I cannot go hire architects now to design homes, to do all the homework, spend, I don't know, $30,000-$40,000 on something that somebody gonna say, hey, you know, it's not gonna work. So there is a steps into this process. So like, I guess first step has to be approved so we can go to the next step.
yeah, and essentially within the code, there's just not enough information to ensure that specifically with lot 3, that it could be done. It may, you know, the developer may have the concept and idea what needs to be done in there, but it needs to be shown. And that's where you know, again, if that basement floor elevation is 620, it has to be 622 or more. That's just a couple of inches above the flood the probable flood elevation. So you're at 622 and you do a 9-foot basement in there. So we're not talking about a 10 or anything extravagant. That puts your top of foundation at 631.
Yes.
The closest elevation that is 631 is over 50 feet from that property.
Yeah.
So either you're going to have 5 feet of foundation exposure, you know, that is going to be here, because you can't fill in here, because then what you're saying is this well is worthless.
I mean, we did this subdivision at 744 and 736 Angleton. And that house has a front porch with, like, I don't know, 8 steps, and it's sticking about 5 feet from the existing elevation. So that would be the same case scenario. I mean, if you're gonna put at 626, top of the foundation at 631, that's gonna be exactly 5 feet above that line. And we are talking about 626 here is on the back side of the proposed rectangle there.
But that's not what they're showing. And I understand that. We just don't have the information that's necessary.
But potentially, like, you know, if people who do understand how the topographical part works, I mean, they're buildable lots.
Sir?
Let's clarify too. I don't think we need full architectural drawings
Correct.
for things like that. We just need an example house like we've done with previous, previous preliminary subdivision plans. So we can get an idea. Go ahead.
We have an obligation to approve them only if they're gonna be buildable lots. And so we need to have a better idea of your commitment to that your idea of how this house will work will indeed work.
It needs to be on paper.
It needs to
with
be on
somebody,
paper,
Not
right.
just talking about it, it needs to be on paper.
Especially-
That's what
I
we're
am
looking for.
thrilled that you've thought this through and you think it's gonna work. I
Okay.
mean, I think this is gonna be a great thing for our city,
Okay,
but we can't approve it unless you can show us that it's gonna work, and it has to
The
be
proposed
paper.
homes.
okay.
No, and
So-
no, not the proposed homes. What we don't know here, again, is the extent of the grade. You're gonna bring over 5 feet of fill in an area that's gonna encompass 4,000 or 5,000 square feet. and it's gonna get compacted, you know, we don't know how you're gonna, we see what you're doing here, but I personally do not see how it works.
I mean, if we see what the elevation at the street now, it's gonna be 624 at the curve, right? So
Sir,
if,
I mean, the bottom line is you're gonna have to do more work and show us that it's gonna work.
okay,
I mean, and arguing with Carlos about that in the elevations isn't gonna do it. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah.
we've got a lot to do tonight. So I would suggest that if you can, and you want to continue to pursue it, that we consider granting the petitioner extension.
Or he has to grant us an
Oh,
extension.
you have to grant us the extension. Oh,
Otherwise, then we have to be forced to vote as is on this.
well, yeah, I mean, I give my permission, so.
And then the next scheduled meeting is August 17th, and that gives you 2 weeks. We'd hope you get us some revisions beforehand, but I think it's also prudent that the engineer has to be in attendance and has to provide us some cross sections and details. I'm not concerned about the house. I'm concerned about the basement elevation and that first floor elevation and how it looks to the street curb.
Okay. Do we have any other like requests, what we should do before we're gonna come to the next meeting? I just want to make sure that we're gonna prepare everything
I
because.
think it was
it's-
on that list that he showed you, the
Yeah.
trees, the different items, those 6 lists.
But the trees, Carlos, it's unrealistic now
Sir,
to
sir.
identify all the trees.
Can you?
That's part of the requirements that we have, and we have to be cognizant in case, the lots get sold or things like that, as well. We know that you're moving into the next steps, but there's always a chance that after they're subdivided, lots get sold to a different person. So we have to, even though you're gonna be developing it later, we need to meet all the requirements that we have with this preliminary plan.
Yeah, but Mr. Robert, I think that should have been done then with all the previous submission, because on the previous submission, when things were submitted, tree plans wasn't part of those submissions. Now you want us to provide us. I mean, we will work on it and we will provide it. But I think we should be consistent with whatever you ask me to do, other people to do as well. And I think something like trees, I think it's, I mean, it could have been waived at this point, but we would have submitted this when we're gonna propose actual homes. It's gonna come anyway.
But aren't you grading that lot and you're gonna be taking down the trees when you grade the lot?
Yes,
So we would need that before you do that, correct?
yes,
Okay, so how are we gonna do that if the houses, you're not gonna turn it into the houses?
but we're gonna grade the lots when when the home's gonna go there.
So you're gonna grade each lot by itself, okay?
No, we're gonna put 2 homes together in the same time. Side by
Hmm.
side.
Afterwards.
The only thing, what
Once
I'm
we get this-
asking, I tried to get this through, but not. Like, we will provide what we need to provide, potential future home, how it's gonna sit, elevation, grading, everything else. But like, things like trees and other stuff, it will require now much more time to, to accomplish all this work.
And again, I think on paper, this can work. I mean, it's shown here, and I think there's some good opportunities here in there. And it may behoove that you, again, if the commission feels comfortable with the outline of lot 3, if you have that home ready to bring that in as part of the process. Because I need to see how a house is going to fit in there.
I mean, we'll bring the footprints and elevations as well.
Very good.
And
Well, we're giving you an opportunity here to even go further and get this ready in there, and that could mediate both parties, both what the city's requirements are for the tree identification, and then the new home.
But the
Yeah.
biggest problem, Carlos, on my side, to get involved now architect and do all this elevation stuff, it's gonna take more than 2 weeks. I mean, with current load that architects have, it could be take 2 months. And, we're trying to get this moving. So, and again, this is like a step-by-step process.
Understood, but this is what we need. So if you can give us the extension, so that you can do that. I think that's kind of what we need to do to move forward.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Before we move on, are there any public comments related to this agenda item? Seeing none in the audience, Carlos, will you please check online, see if there's any?
All right, Chairman, there's no additional attendees and nobody's noting any
Okay.
request.
So do we got everything we need on that? So we'll move on to item B, which is 3 Stacy Drive. Carlos?
Chairman, this item was also at our previous agenda. In there, in action was deferred at the request of the commission on a consensus. That revisions be submitted under specific criteria. Just to kind of bring everybody back up to speed in their residential homes go through a review process here and all of that. Homes that are built on lots that are in full compliance with our residential zoning districts go through what we call community design review. So it's kind of like an architectural review in which the commission has prepared and the council has approved some guidelines to be considered through that process. And the homes are evaluated by staff based on those guidelines, which have 9 specific principles: massing, roofs, garage, elevation, articulation, materials, site grading, tree preservation, stormwater management, and then there's also supplements to additions and accessory structures in there. At the end of the day, though, the commission is required to approve a home if the lot meets all the underlying dimensional requirements of the SR district. In addition to that, our ordinance goes further that says that when a lot does not meet the district minimums, there's a procedure and process that it could go through community design review, but also what we term site plan review under chapter 400, which are our zoning regulations. And site plan review, the intent is that the city recognizes that there's deficiencies in a lot, whether it's land area, width, or depth, or something that those are the 3 primary aspects of it, and that the commission can take into account what that deficiency, what type of impact that will have to the surrounding environment and along with it within the lot itself in the process in there. A site plan review is a more stringent level, and the commission has wide ability to consider, again, that steps have been taken to minimize, negative impacts on surrounding properties along within the subject site itself. So it goes above and beyond just thinking about design and criteria, but it's about taking a look at more holistically what impact it has on the community, the neighborhood, the street, and the site itself. So this petition that came before the commission last month on July 20th was for the construction of a new single-family home here at 3 Stacy in there. And overall, from my report, in the analysis of the Chapter 425 community design, the petition appeared to comply with the criteria of the 8-9 design principles that are outlined. Had masonry, had elevation articulation, the roof, the mass, the garage were all consistent with petitions that have previously gone before the commission. However, the lot was deficient in terms of its width in here, and therefore it also required site plan review. From that meeting, we heard concerns and comments about how the proposed new home would impact the streetscape along Stacy Drive, and concerns about that setback. There were other items that were discussed through that process, but ultimately the direction that the commission gave, the consensus was for the petitioner to look at the 2 properties at number 1 and number 5 Stacy, provide the setback distance of the exterior corners of the house footprint, and use that as use that average to determine an appropriate setback for the new home at 3 Stacy Drive. and that they give them some tolerance level about plus or minus 5 feet in that process. The concern was, again, the impact that the footprint had on the actual streetscape in there. Now, there was discussion on this because one, the setback that came before the commission is compliant with code. But understand, the codes are minimums. These are not maximums in any way. So they met a minimum standard doesn't necessarily mean that they comply or they take into consideration that the issues that the commission can evaluate and assess through a site plan review process. Secondly, was just the you know, when you look at the stepping in place, it was out of character with the streetscape. And they're again, they are meeting the 40-foot minimum, but it was just well further ahead of all the two adjacent properties. While there was discussions about what requirements or, you know, or design criteria was a neighbor considering when they built house at 1 Stacy and whether 5 Stacy was going to get redeveloped or not. The directive from the commission was specifically to get the corner elevations on the two adjacent lots, get the average and provide revisions that illustrated the new home within a tolerance of that average. And what we received last Thursday was not that. So at this point, I'm not sure, going back to the commission, we've had our public discussion, we've had the petitioner presentations, we had the public comments. This is not what was requested by the commission. So either the commission table the item to the next meeting, or if the commission wants to act, my recommendation would be to deny it, again, deny the petition. In this case, with prejudice, and there that allows the opportunity, if they want to proceed, an appeal process that they can continue. Be glad to answer any specific questions. I also have the clip of the commission discussion on there. It is on YouTube, and what directive was given in that process for those that weren't here.
Since I wasn't here, if you can play it, that'd
Absolutely.
be great.
So it's a gray area, but I think we're saying there's room. And again, especially if it was a shallow lot, it'd be a different conversation too. If it's a shallow lot and they had nowhere to go in the back, I'd be like, well, it blocks one's view and that's unfortunate. But there are options here. So I'm saying let's explore the options.
I would ask the commission to consider the setback distances from the corners of number 1 and number 5 at 2 points at the two far ends. To look at that average and to be within a 5-foot tolerance of that average. You know, I don't, what I would not want is to be in a situation where I moved it back 2 feet and therefore, you know, that's what the commission said. And I think we don't know what that setback is until we know what that average is, and then they should be within a reasonable tolerance level.
I'm fine with that. I don't have anything in mind. I'm just,
And likewise, that's why it's being asked of me, and I
as far as I'm concerned, if you could, if the parties get together and agree on something that everybody is happy with, I'm fine with it.
I guess I would, sorry.
I mean, that's my feeling, is that if anybody else feels
I
differently.
I guess I looked at that as that's a great starting point. Let's see what that design looks like, but I don't want to prescript like 5 feet or 4% or 5%.
exactly.
Like
I would want to see that on the plan.
Yes,
No
exactly.
matter what, I want to see it
For sure.
Yeah. And I think there should be a reasonable tolerance.
Yeah.
Within
don't
that. I
dictate
just
that
don't,
directly.
correct. And I don't see the need to put staff in a position to make that call. Because again, I mean, I can hear one side say 2 feet, the other side say 20 feet, and we'll be back with the commission of asking, well, what's correct. The true thing to do and to be cognizant of both properties on either side is to look at their setbacks, calculate what that average is, and then be within a reasonable tolerance of that average. And that's probably about 5 feet.
That's fine with me.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're looking for here is a compromise, and
Correct.
I think that's going to accomplish it.
Can we, sorry. Trying to put this to bed.
So can you chat on it and give me 2 minutes?
We're
gonna need to see some updated drawings.
So I don't think you're gonna put the bits on. So
We can do that if there's agreement made, then send to that Carlos internally, make sure that it's the drawings. I'm not gonna vote on this tonight.
We need something in writing and to see something on paper done. Thank you. Do we have any other comments on this matter? Okay, we're gonna move on.
All right.
Thanks, Carlos.
All right, we do have the petitioner is in attendance along with some of the neighbors that spoke at the last meeting in there. But again, I think the directive I received from the commission was for those revisions. And you have the petitioner's response and the supplement information that was included. But it didn't revise the site improvements to reflect anything based on that average.
So how does everybody feel? What do you, is that still the, go ahead, Carol.
I'm surprised that they haven't revised the drawings, disappointed, actually. There's nothing in the rear of the lot that would prohibit them from moving the house back. It's not topography, there's no creek running through there, they're trying to save a tree, etc. So I'm not understanding what the reluctance is to move the house over. There's no material difference there, no reason why not. I don't want to go through that discussion again, but I would like to hear from the petitioner as to why they chose not to move the house and comply with our request.
Yeah, I concur with that. Does anybody have any other questions or comments related to that? So I think at this point in time, let's hear from the petitioner, kind of figure out what the sentiment is.
Hello, Doug Cohen with Douglas Properties. I'm the titled owner to the property, and the home is under contract to Deborah and Greg sitting in the back. So I apologize in advance that we're in this situation. It's no fun for anybody.
And the address is 2 Stacy Drive, right? Because we just got to get that in the record.
Is it 3? It's
3. Thank you.
3 Stacy.
Thank you. All right.
And I live on 1025 South McKnight, if that
Good.
is important. So as far as, there's a lot of intangibles. I'm trying to satisfy a lot of people here, mostly my client. And there's, as far as Carol's question is like, what is the reason why because there's a lot of intangibles. They have specific elevations that they want to see out of a window. They have furniture issues to lay out a room. It's not like we can move a window because they already have all this furniture. We went to a great amount of time and pain to lay out their children's bedrooms and strategically have placed furniture and look out a window and see certain things, which is challenging. But, I just have a list of a few things. And then I wanted to introduce my architect and engineer. And if you don't mind, I'll do that now. Eric Wiedmeyer is with Voles. He's my engineer, and Katie Cook is with Jim Bileski Architects. So between the three of us, we've probably done 100 homes together. So I think we have a pretty good team. One of the things that we can do, and I agree with Carlos, we can find an average and then be within, if we found, we did some we've done a lot of due diligence over the last 2 weeks. So if we did take the average that Carlos is asking us to do at the 2 neighboring homes, and Eric will verify everything that I'm saying because it's his stamp, right? And his measurements are with a computer, so it's not like they can be fudged. So if we took that average, and then if we were within 5 feet is what I think I heard of that average, that moves the house back like 4 or 5 feet. And we'd probably be okay with that. And so that was, I want to start out with that. I just lost my place here. So that being said, we can angle the home slightly, which I think, follows the kind of contour of the street a little bit. And maybe even improve the elevation from the street. And I think that might help as well. And this also, by angling it, it moves the house 2 feet further to the west or away from Corey and his wife, which might be a good thing as well. There's one elevation page on there that was an exhibit. Carlos, if you could pick it up, the one that shows our house in yellow.
Yeah, but bear with me 1 second. This is the information. This one you're talking about?
No, there was one that was yellow. It had our house in yellow.
Was that from the previous
Yeah.
meeting?
Yeah. There you are.
This one.
Yeah. When I saw that rendering there, I'm threw up, but it's not to scale because, and it's very misleading. The differential between the eastern house front corner and our corner, from this picture, it looks like it could be 20 feet. It's three, so that's pretty misleading.
Which part is misleading? Just so.
They're talking about, I didn't extend, this is mine.
Yeah.
Oh,
I know, and I didn't extend it all the way down to this corner here, is what they're reflecting.
yeah, okay. So-
Now, in their calculations that they provided to you, you'll have those measurements in there, and that's what we requested. But not any.
So the gray part of the eastern house, that gray part is only a chunk of the house? Is that what
That is correct.
okay, so the part to the right of that is the garage, I believe. So where his cursor is, if you could see that, that's the corner of the house. And the difference between that corner and our corner is 3 feet. So like I said, even when I saw that, since the garage wasn't highlighted, I was like, oh my God, that's awkward. But it's not, because it's not, that rendering didn't show the structure of the house in its entirety. So I just wanted to point that out. I thought that was a little bit, misleading. One of the things that in the parking lot from a couple weeks ago that we talked about with Corey was he would put some vegetation on his property that talked about, I know bamboo is not, and we were like, that's great. We would do the same thing. So yeah, I know in other municipalities, and probably it should be in Olivet too, because I build in almost all the municipalities, and most of the higher, more demanding municipalities, which I think Olivet is getting there. There is a landscape plan that is included in the design of the house. And I would recommend that, and maybe even in this case, I don't know if it's possible, but we can design a landscape plan that would screen, because I think that that's part of the issue here is some screening. So I know that, Corey has brought that up, and we would do the same thing as a neighbor and whatever, and we could do that without a problem. This particular subdivision, there is a lot of, as you well know, a lot of challenging, unique angles of the street, which when you have those unique angles and contours of the street that are kind of erratic, it affects the look of the setbacks. That's kind of the crux of the problem because of that. I'm not sure what the right word is, but it jogs erratically once you turn that corner. Because of those unique contours of this subdivision in all the streets, there's actually 6 occasions in this subdivision alone where this scenario exists. So it's not like this is a unique thing. This has happened I don't know, was it 6? We're 7 or we're 6? We're number 6? Yes. So we're the 6th situation of this home. The previous 5, I'd bet dollars to donuts, flew through this committee, because there was no pushback. And I noticed that today as you go further west into that cul-de-sac where I built a home probably 20 years ago, backing up to the cemetery. There's 2 homes right there that are newer, and the differential between the 2 homes is huge. And when the one person that is further set back in that little cul-de-sac, when he looks out his front door, he's looking inside their garage. So like I said, this is not a unique situation for this subdivision. We're number 6.
Carlos, can you pull up the map and just so we can all be on the same page? I think I know what you're talking about.
This map, sir?
Yeah, perfect.
If you go to, I think maybe Eric
24.
will tell me, but I think the most extreme was number 23. I think that's still Stacy.
21 is the new house that was put in.
Well, 23, there you are. Yeah, exactly, right there. Put your cursor to the left, please. Those 2 houses, look at that.
But 21 came in after 23 too. I think that does kind of make a difference.
Okay.
As well.
Okay, so he kind of he knew what he was getting into, but
Yeah.
but I'm sure the other 4 or whatever, it's, like I said, the bottom line is that this happened. This is not a totally unique situation. I know that Carlos wanted to maybe table this and do whatever, but Deborah and Greg have moved here from the East Coast, and they're in a rental house, and there is a time issue here for me to get this house done for school reasons, et cetera. So I would really appreciate, we all want to put this behind us. This is no fun. I'm having more fun building townhouses. With all due respect, we want to come out of here with a solution. And so I can apply for my permit and then move forward. I think all parties want that. And I'm sorry in advance that I'm here doing this. It's no fun for anybody. So there was a couple of other, I know I'm over my time here, but give me some leeway, please. There were some exhibits from a couple of weeks ago also, after we did our due diligence in challenging some of those exhibits with the motion of the sun and this and that. And when Katie and Eric take the mic, we'll challenge some of the exhibits that were presented last week. We also are put into this situation because the Eastern House is unique. It's in my opinion, it's a cool house. Some people may like it, some people may not. That's how contemporary houses are in St. Louis. That's the way life is. But it's not so much the contemporariness of the house that makes it challenging for us, but it's the angle of the house. Between the front corner on the right and the front corner on the left, there's several feet of difference. If that house were plotted originally to be like 99% of all of their new houses to be on the same plane, we wouldn't be here. So I think a lot of the issues here are created by the plotting, how that house was plotted. It's very unique. I think that's all I have. We're for sure here to answer. We have, I think, every question you may have pocket ready to answer.
Let's hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the best play here is for you to fire questions to us, and then we'll answer them if you haven't.
Well, the only question I have too is, the whole thing about those averages, that Carlos
Yeah.
mentioned before. I thought I heard that you said that that's already been calculated or worked out.
Calculated it. Yep.
So I'd like to see what those.
Yep. Go ahead.
As Doug said, I'm Katie Neeson Cook. I am with Jim Valesky Architects. This is Eric.
Foles Engineering.
So we did it two ways. We took the average of all four corners of number 1 and number 5, which gave us an average that far exceeds the neighborhood at 58.5 feet. If we take the three,
Where does that show up on the map?
I have
Uh-huh.
not shown it on the map. Or the numbers aren't on the
Yeah,
line.
I'm
is
just
not
trying
on-
to get an idea with those averages, where that house would then be placed.
It would be about 20 feet back from where it is now.
Okay.
If we take the three averages that are more consistent with the neighborhood, being the front right corner of number 1 and the two corners of number 5, that puts our average at 49.5 feet, which would put, which actually splits the difference of where the front of our garage and the front door of our house is at this point. Because we have the front door is about 52, is that correct? 52 feet back? And the front corner of the garage is at the setback line at 40 feet on the left. And because of the curvature, we are about 3 to 4 feet further back on the right corner of our garage.
Carlos, where on that map is that? Just because I'm not familiar with it as well as you are with the plans.
I think right here is the corner of the 40-foot,
But yeah,
and right here is the front door.
So they're saying it'd be in between those. But
This is actually a better rendering, so you can actually see the right corner of the eastern house is almost on a very similar plane as ours.
it's 3 feet back from the front facade of our house where the front door is.
Well, I'm not sure how everybody feels, but I think it's got to move back, further myself. It does seem to extend out quite a bit with this. It does, to me, seem out of character with, that street, that landscape and kind of that, kind of arc, that I've seen written, down on the previous reports. Carol?
Sure, I agree with you 100%. That has to move back, and I still like Carlos's recommendation, and I'm disappointed that you don't have drawings showing it to us, so we could get it approved and moved on. So I'm not sure we can debate how much, but you don't have anything to show us yet. And so we're still in the same.
Well, we
We're
want to be
involved.
able to come to an agreement tonight and then show it. And I would think that if we come to an agreement and then show it to Carla, I don't think we have to come back.
No, that's
not,
no,
that won't work.
no.
Okay, so based on the information from last 2 weeks ago's meeting, if I heard you correctly, take the average and be within 5 feet of that pushes the house back about 5 feet.
Well, that was not including all corners, right?
I want to see where you calculated that in your report. Because I have my numbers and I'm willing to share them. I know you're a licensed professional.
I'm trying to remember where I put them.
Would you like me to show you ours?
I'm curious because when I use the 4 corners that are all dimensioned, if I include the 86-foot dimension which is wildly out of character with the neighborhood, it pushes our house back 20 feet from.
So
where
you
it
didn't
is.
put a table together is what I'm hearing.
No,
Okay, thank you.
And when you say out of character, you're talking about out of character with the setback from
When
the
you-
yard, but maybe not necessarily out of character with the view of, how the houses lay out.
when we look at the street as a whole, the houses and their offsets are all between 40 and 50 feet.
I understand. I understand, but what we're dealing with is, the change in the streetscape or the change in the street and the position where the existing houses are. So that's where the character of the neighborhood comes in.
So
That's the way I see it.
that's the way I would look at it as well.
Okay.
And I'm struggling because I can't, approve anything unless I have something to say.
Well, and I do
I'm-
like the idea what Doug's talking about is doing that little bit of rotation too, if it's, agreeable to everybody, because that might help as well. But it would be good to be able to actually see what we're talking about.
I can't have trouble conceptualizing without seeing something on paper and.
So Carlos, did you say you had measurements that you did?
Yeah, based on the information that's on this. I mean, you can see the numbers and you can easily add them up.
Yeah, that's what we did it informally, just, 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Are you asking us to include all 5?
The commission's instructions were the 2 corners of each house on 1 and 5, and to average those out and then to look at the average and be within a tolerance for that average.
But I mean, I think that's a little unfair because of the unusualness of number 1 being such a differential between corner to corner. I mean, how many feet?
30 feet.
It's a 30 feet difference between corner to corner
Yeah.
of number 1. Yeah, I mean, how many houses do you have one corner of the house and the other corner set back 30 feet? I mean,
And what they're indicating is that this distance right here to that corner here is skewing, like over skewing the average.
yes, big time.
But even if you look at the curvature that's been provided here, that doesn't take that corner into account, you can see the degree of overlap. And they should probably be within a tolerance of that line right here.
I personally, I think that's probably a little bit more realistic than averaging all 4 dimensions.
What is?
The curve that Carlos is pointing out goes between the 2 nearest points of number 3 or number 5, and then the front of number 1.
Right.
And it
So-
included the existing front corner of number 3. That's the point that was used
So,
on that curve.
okay, so in essence, what,
If we set the right corner on that line, does that seem to solve the issue?
We have
does everyone understand? Yeah.
we have
Oh,
to see.
really?
it.
No, it's right there. It's very simple. We just see the.
Conceptually,
No, I understand what you're saying, but I need to see it.
We
will come back to this. Okay.
But we want to let you know what we're coming back with.
Yeah, I think the question is which side of our proposed home is subject to the average?
Now, like this, put up
Yeah.
here.
that's what I'm
or
asking.
This, put up there.
That's
That's
exactly what we're asking.
That's, there was that, put up
Right.
here,
Correct.
which it feels like if we have to use the left side, that's incongruous with the neighborhood more so than using the right side.
Rob, could you point out again exactly what we're talking about?
Yeah. So the question is, do you move the house back to this point right here on this corner? So that dimension here, or does it go from this point to match the curve, which is that distance, which is great, or go back to this part, to that corner, which is even great.
So I
So,
think it's important also to know that as we push the house back, it's detrimental to his solar.
It
It was
also-
what? I'm sorry. What was it? I
The
got a
fir-
part.
Push the house back is detrimental to his solar.
The solar, so the more.
The further back we push it, the more our second floor ridge cast a shadow onto his solar array, which we do have an animation. That's,
Second floor ridge right there.
no, it's a side to side ridge.
Do you know where approximately that is?
So your pin was almost on it. Just come forward. That is our highest ridge right there.
Where it says ridge.
Yep.
Yeah,
That is the highest ridge.
So Carlos, when you recommended the formula, how are you thinking that would be applied here?
I think it's within, again, these two corners. Now, I do agree that this is, and this is this does skew that, and then these two corners here. Now, you can argue the same thing if you wanted to go to the extreme corner or where that measurement were to take place, because that's over 70 feet. But if you looked at here, here, and here, and you looked at this arch that's created here, and I think at least a reasonable attempt to take a step forward in this process is to move that back corner behind that line. Now, I leave that the rest of the commission of whether it should be more or not. I do not believe it should be less.
What is? What is this part right here?
That's the garage roof.
That's the garage roof. This right here. Yes, sir.
Something I would just consider is trying to pick a midpoint, and trying to go back, to kind of balance, some of, that the differences between each side, but then do you pick this point or do you pick that one? But I'd almost have to kind of see exactly how. that
Yeah.
goes.
I think when you look at here, 10 feet. About 10 feet, and that's probably about 15.
I kind of like the idea of choosing the midpoint, Rob. That makes some sense to me.
Yeah, I do, I think, but we want to finish with them, then we'll have a chance. So that's kind of anybody else have any other additional thoughts right now? We haven't made any final decisions, but we do want to make sure we hear from all parties. Did you have any?
One other idea, and I wanted to introduce a consultant of mine, Ed, with the plan.
Good. If you can come up in front and state your name and address.
Being slow. It's Ed Levinson, Creve Coeur, grew up in Olivet, so.
Yeah, correct. Could you state your name and address or your
It's Ed
address?
Levinson, 11501 Craig Court,
Good.
apartment 109, 63146.
Fantastic.
The idea was basically if the existing, you can see where the black line is the outline of the house that used to be there. All the way in the back right hand, yeah, that line there going all the way back, and you can see in the back right hand corner there. Yeah. If you took the house, angled it a little bit to follow the turn of the street itself, push the house back into that far right hand corner so that it matches what was there. And it would also cant the house a little bit so it takes it in the line, in effect, the curve of the street that's coming in. Is that something that it seems like you're compromising, and that accomplishes a lot of what it is that the commission seems to be trying to get to? And so I'm just throwing that out for your consideration.
Yeah, then that's one of those things. It's almost because you're changing it. How that
You change the cant a little bit, about two degrees or so, pushing the house back about 4.5, 5 feet, right in there. And you go back into the footprint of what the house that was there when the people next door built their house, that house was already there.
But from the backside.
Right,
From the
on the backside, and that
So when
pulls
it's
the whole
built
house,
forward,
right.
I think we'd have to see that,
But does that mean, it seems like trying to get a compromise
we're
that
getting-
there would balance, and hopefully the buyers are happy with that, but, and the existing customers or the existing residents find that if they were happy with that footprint when they moved into the house and built their house, that it seems that it would be something that the city might want. And I'm just throwing that out for consideration. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. No, it's. Okay.
I think that might be it on my count.
Yeah, yeah.
Unless you have any other questions.
Anybody else have any questions or comments for Doug? Okay, so not at this time, and then we'll kind of hear from, we'll do some public comments on this, as well. And so at this point in time, we'll bring on public comments related to this. Go ahead, sir. Remember to state your name and address.
Yes, sir. My name is, excuse me, Larry Norber. I live at 2 Stacy Drive, which is directly across the street from all three houses, but especially from number 3. I'm also a 22-year resident of Olivet at that address. And I'm also a Heather Hill Second Edition HOA trustee and have been for the last 4.5 years. First thing I can tell you is 4 wrongs don't necessarily make a right. If we're pointing out 4 wrongs in the neighborhood, I think we need to get this one right. At the last meeting, Carlos indicated that 25 to 30 feet seemed like a decent compromise. The commission was pretty much in agreement with that. We didn't take a vote or anything, but that was, my general idea of what the commission was thinking. But I think the builder, and I don't have the ability to use the computers and do all that, but what I do have is the Olivet, City of Olivet Residential Development and Design Guidelines. And I have read this. I've read all 28 pages of it. And step 1 in identifying your context is understanding your neighborhood. Okay, there's no numbers in here. There's nothing like that. If you take a look at the drawing that you presented, this house is just way out of line. Now, I do think I saw maybe one of you, looking at the site over the last couple of weeks. If you haven't had a chance to, go out there and take a look and make sure that this development is in the context of the rest of the surrounding neighbors, not of the entire subdivision, but in the context of this area where we live. And I don't believe it is, unless we look at that compromise that Carlos suggested and that the commission not necessarily voted to and agreed with, but was in agreement to certainly take a look at. Other than that, I think that the builder gave you very short shrift, did not show up with the right information, did not apparently listen to what you asked him to do, and he failed. And that's kind of the way I feel about it. Come out there and take a look, and you tell me if you think that the development as it stands is in contextual and continuity and harmony with the rest of the neighborhood.
Just to clarify, are you talking just about the placement location?
I'm
or
talking just about the placement.
Okay.
Wonderful looking house.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm all for it. Makes my property look great, but not where it's placed. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Nancy Nalick. My mother lives at number 5, Stacy. She's 89 years old.
Oh, did you state your address?
Oh, my address is
yeah.
15563 Parasol Drive in Chesterfield, Missouri.
Very good. Thank you.
Sorry, did it in
That's
the
right.
wrong order.
Got to be strict. in that.
Yeah, my mother's Inga Iverson. She's lived in this house for 47 years. Her goal when she passes is that this home would stay in our family, go to my daughter to raise her great grandchildren in. So we do not have any plans to tear the house down. We want to see it maybe expanded, but we love this neighborhood and my daughter would like to raise her kids. So I tell you that because I have the history of what the neighborhood used to look like and all the homes that have been torn down. and rebuilt. I don't call them McMansions, but I do think that when you have a property as small, and my mom's property is very wide. This number 3 is not. And when you're putting a large $1.6 million home, which is what Doug came and met with us, he was kind and showed us, it's a beautiful home. I totally agree. But you're putting a $1.6 million home on a property that is almost stem to stern, side to side. And speaking for myself, it would be uncomfortable. I feel as though the house is shouting at you from the street, and doesn't fit with the rest of the homes. But I do want to say it's a beautiful home, and I want to compliment Doug. He came over to say if there was any problems, he gave me his phone number, and Inga agreed and said, "This is nice, thank you." But I do worry about, I want to think about the big picture for this neighborhood and every house that is built. It's important that we think of it in terms of whether it's this couple that want to buy it and in 20 years, another couple. We want it to be right for the neighborhood, not just for the builder or this specific family who, I haven't met. And that's what I'm thinking about is the future. So I just wanted to say that, and I am speaking on behalf of Inga. She hasn't left her house since November, so she couldn't be here today. But I guess that's really really it.
Thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Good. Corey, why don't you state your name and address for the record?
My name is Corey Fate. I live at 1 Stacy Drive, which is directly to the right if you're facing the new home, proposed home.
All right. Bear with me 1 second, Chairman.
No worries.
Having problems with the screening. Kind of set up a little bit different. Yes, I get it into that mode.
All right, I will, a number of this has already been presented to the board, so I'm going to kind of fly through it because I don't want to waste your time too much, but I'll try and punctuate some points. So as we were talking about kind of the lines that was already went over earlier, number 5, 3, and 1 are some of the, in this picture, this is an old Google map of the oldest, in the neighborhood. And this relationship has existed for 70 years since the beginning of the neighborhood. These 3 homes have sat in this position along this curve, basically identifying what the prevailing, which is in the PCD guidelines of prevailing. What's prevailing? Well, prevailing is existing and accepted. This is the accepted arrangement of these homes. So when we built our home, now seen in the picture here, we conform to that, and I didn't move that line. Yes, we decided to move our home a little bit further backwards to save a tree in the front of our yard, a mature tree, and to kind of blend on the guides. The previous owners had this nice atrium in front. We really didn't want to disturb them, and we had a backyard for days, so we set our home where we did. But again, I haven't moved that line, and so now the new proposed home wants to put itself in this position now here in location with the old 1 Stacy Drive, not even our home involved here. And you can see that it would clearly violate that line. So now here with the, Stacy updated version in there in the back row. Now, one of the claims was the new homeowners want a large backyard. I support that. I totally understand that. This backyard is one of the largest in the entire neighborhood. And when you put the home where they would like to put the home, you're almost ending up with an Olympic swimming pool as a backyard. So now if we conform to the prevailing setbacks and put the home here, we still see that we have a large backyard. Matter of fact, it's a little more than 85 feet on the one side and 125 feet on the other side. So better yet, what if we mirrored the home? We would center the building between number 5 and number 1. We would increase the space between the 2 tightest buildings, because this is the building between 1 Stacy and 3 Stacy is the tightest in the entire neighborhood. So we'd relieve that, and that's noted by the architect that if we flip the home, that we would increase the distance between those homes by 10 feet, which is a 30% improvement. The privacy of the bedrooms of the garages of both 5 and Stacy would now all be in alignment where bedrooms are aligned with garages. Relieves the solar cast, relieves the shadow on our rain garden, and also follows the rhythm of the driveway on the right. So I kind of did some ground truthing here, where I actually went out to the property. I put in a 10-foot pole. I then measured where that 10-foot pole should be according to the plans. I then went over to Stony side where that particular thing is, and went out and measured where I was taking my pictures from. So then I took that picture, and that's the real perspective. That's how that home would sit on there according to my iPhone. Yeah, absolutely. Right, and then forward. So next, and I'll try not to belabor this point, but next is now from the center of the street, which is a more car view, looking back at the home. Again, the pole and the position of positioning that pole at a 10-foot level, going out to the center of the street. You can see the arrow at the top. That's where the position of my camera would be now here at Stony side, because it is this home model, and taking that picture. So there's your setup, and now there's the home. So now what if you did put it back where it was in the setbacks? Now the home looks like that. Since the architect didn't provide that, I decided I would provide that for it. So only 2 more. I'm going to go very fast through this. This is now going on the other side of the home, looking at this nice tree of ours. Our home's off to the right there. So with the home where it was, a little bit further away for context. Now there's that home. Now it's back in its, if it was in the prevailing position instead of where it was proposed. So now, least important to everybody else, but most important to me, this is my phone flat against my window in my dining room. This is my current view. This is what the view would turn into. All right. So,
Okay, thank you.
those are my points.
Okay, any other public comments? Let's just wait. Let's just see if we have any other more public comments out there. Carlos, seeing that, is there anybody else in the audience that has public comments on this? I know, Doug, you want to have a follow-up, I get that, but let's just see if there's anybody online.
There is one person online. If you'd like to speak in regards to this agenda item, if you can show raise of hands. That's typically located on the lower portion of the window, of the Zoom window. And Chairman, at this point, I don't see none.
Does look like there's another person that wants to have now.
So
Name and address. for the record.
I'm Jenna Lou Fade, 1 Stacy Drive, and we've been owners of this property for 16 years. One other thing that my husband didn't allude to, but is part of your planning and design commission, is the amount of trees that are maintained on this property. As it is stated right now, the majority of the trees in the front of that lot and the back will be removed. The one that they are keeping does need to be removed because it is dead, but the rest, I think, except for one, will be removed. And we have tried to maintain as many trees when we built our property. It is a mature area, and we just ask that that also be taken into consideration. We do have a lot of water that flows between 1 and 3 Stacy. We have installed a rain garden, which will be affected by the positioning of this house that I have a contract with Deer Creek Watershed to maintain. And the shadowing of this house and all is going to affect that as well and needs to be taken into consideration. But there's a lot of water and there does need to be some mitigation for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Carlos, was there anybody else online? Didn't appear.
Nobody that's indicating they'd like to speak, sir.
I'll grant Doug, yeah, go ahead, especially since I let Corey go longer. Yeah.
One of the things that we're adamantly against, which makes no sense to the design of the house, is mirroring it. By mirroring it, we're now on the low side, and the intangibles of that are not attractive because we would be coming out of the mudroom into the garage 4 steps. When you have 4 steps, that's against code. You have to have a landing, then 3 steps, which means that now there's no more 3-car garage. A chunk of their garage is now steps, which is, nobody wants that. On top of that, if it was mirrored, the only windows in the basement would be the rear elevation. Nobody wants that. So the mirroring of the house is not something that we're comfortable in doing.
Okay, very good. Okay. That being said, it would have been nice to kind of hear some potential, like where we're gonna go from here. I do think we need to go back, but trying to find that agreement point, as to what would be acceptable, for everybody. So since it wasn't kind of brought up, I am kind of curious of how the commission members feel, about some of the ideas that were being thrown out there. And I think we're all in agreement that it does need to be moved back. It's just how much, and trying to come up with something consistent so we can see if we can get some general consensus before we have another submittal that we tweak it again and have to keep going back. And I don't think anybody wants to do that. So any thoughts of where we?
I don't know that we're in so much different place than it sounds like we were last time it was met, as far as the recommendation about creating this average, something that goes with the natural curve of the street. We just need to see what that proposal is. So I'm open to whatever the rest of the commission thinks about making a different recommendation other than what we've already made, but it sounds like we need to see it, and it sounds like the petitioner is open to making some changes.
There are some variations between what measurement you take and which one you don't. And you can play around with all of those measurements to kind of get you, to kind of skew it one way or the other. So what I'd like to do is come up with kind of something concrete so that takes out the ambiguity. You guys know what I mean. Go ahead, Carol.
So I agree with Sam. I haven't seen anything that deters me from our previous recommendation that we made when we met last. I think if the developer wants to propose some other options that still bring the house back, I need to see those on paper because I can't conceptualize at all what this is going to look like.
No, I
And
don't disagree.
I think if they want to go to that effort, if not, I'd take it back the way we had it.
Bring up that one screen, Carlos, that had the red kind of line.
Yeah.
Maybe that was the one that.
When we were kind of talking about the points, we were using the black line that Carlos had.
Yeah.
Chairman, I'm not comfortable with recommending an option between what we said last time and seeing nothing. If the developer wants to put some options on paper that we can look at and make an assessment about.
I'm not asking you to
that-
vote on it
But,
without me presenting. That's-
right, but I think our recommendation that we made at our last meeting still stands. We need to see it.
Trying to set the example that when he goes to the timing and expense.
Go on to the mic.
I'm trying to get to the point where we can come here with maybe not 100%, but a good feeling of what we're gonna present. So the next time we're here, you know it's coming.
Yeah,
So
that we might be able to make a decision and maybe say it needs to be moved. up
this is
or
what we
down.
asked for, this is what we got, blah,
Yeah,
blah, blah.
yeah.
Yeah. So, is it weird if I took a 3-minute recess and talked to my clients? I mean, that might save a lot of.
Chairman, it's kind of out of order. Can we, and with all due respect, we've had the discussion. This is the commission's opportunity now to decide what the next step would be. And it's not the role of the commission to design or to make that determination.
I don't think we are trying to design. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we, either way, if Doug meets with his client and comes up with a compromise, I mean, that's great. But we still
I
need to
understand
see
that.
something
Yeah, we understand.
on paper in order to.
Totally understand. that.
Yeah.
But, unfortunately, it was hopeful that we would already be kind of at a mitigation type thing, and that didn't happen.
Right.
And that, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But if we can get it done tonight, or get close, I think that's a good thing. And I'm gonna allow it, the 3-minute, have a discussion, and let's just see where it comes, because
3
I
minutes
think,
might save us 30 minutes next time.
yes.
Start the clock.
I'm gonna get some water.
seconds. Where's that one? This one? Okay. Can we highlight this line a little bit? maybe? Let's see.
Approximation.
Three minutes?
That's pretty close, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, I'm the one that was late.
Yes.
So, yeah, I appreciate that.
Back in session. We're missing anything?
We are missing. Oh, there she is. Okay. Okay.
Right.
And Dawn's coming up soon.
Microphone, sir.
Okay,
I want
Can we-
you on record.
can we put that last drawing back up? And I'm gonna.
So you're looking, which point are you?
Well,
looking?
I'm waiting until he,
Oh, understood.
The fat black line on that piece of paper is an approximation of the prevailing curve as indicated on that aerial that is
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the screen right now.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll pass this around. I'm just, go ahead. Pass this
That's what
down.
they're proposing now.
yes.
It's a
And we would follow it up with the engineering that would be part of the permit application, but in a nutshell, yes,
Talking about moving this
Right.
back to,
right,
that's kind of what we're seeing.
yes.
My only thing, I still want to go. You know, because it keeps it more that in the middle type thing. And I'm not sure how everybody else feels about it, but that's basically kind of my initial thoughts. I don't know the differences of those numbers.
What do you think they are?
Right.
No, they turns 8 into 12.
It would also be interesting to see the idea of that, so how that.
Does that? Does that?
Chairman,
Yeah.
just a comment on that rough drawing. It's, again, it's very hard for me to conceptualize. But my initial reaction is that it appears to me that that would make the garage still jut out in front of her, which
How about,
would disturb me.
I'm not sure if this is.
Always jetting. Yeah, the garage is always jetting. That's
No,
all.
but just tilting it juts it up more. That's what she's concerned about. How about,
The tilting it makes it more so?
that's what she's
No,
concerned.
no.
Oh, maybe I misunderstood. She's, go ahead.
No, I'm concerned that the garage jutting out beyond the line, as far as it is it's gonna be too much. But as I said, it's very hard for me to conceptualize without seeing something, sketched out. So
Well, on this model, the garage always is protruding out.
I think,
It's
correct me if I'm
beyond the
wrong.
line.
Yeah, she wants to have
It's the
the garage back.
Well, that,
That takes 40% of the backyard.
Right, I think, Mr. Chairman, I think what I'm saying is that it appears to me, and I'm not a designer, okay, that if you take the whole thing back behind the line, that it's gonna fit in better with the neighborhood. Absent that you don't want to do that, I think you have to draw out some other options and present them to us and give me some idea of what it is that you think you can do. But
That's what we're doing.
but we came back to the same thing. I can't make even a rough judgment call without seeing something. That's me. I don't know how the rest of you feel, but that's how I feel.
Showing a number of different options. And indicate what your preferred is. So that when we look at it, we can look at option A, B, and C. You know, maybe this one being, you know, the corner, you know, right here. The midpoint, you know, back to here.
If we move the right corner back to where we're presenting it, then it's on the same plane as his right corner, right? So,
Right. And let's just see that.
Right.
Horizon line. Let's just, if you don't mind, let's just see what those look like. And we can get a different
So
perspective.
two different.
Go ahead.
I think it would be good to see a few different options because I know that there are other implications to the neighbors too, because it was mentioned about the photovoltaics. Well, we don't know
The what? I didn't understand.
the solar panels.
Oh.
So, you know, it's like maybe, right, if we pushed it back X amount of feet, they might like it because their view's better, but it messes up the,
100% will.
so. Okay, yeah, and that's the kind of thing that I was.
Okay, be careful, guys, when we're starting to speak comments without being on the mic, you know.
Carla, I do actually have an animation of the solar with the house where it currently is positioned and with the house pushed back the 28 feet that they're requesting. I had emailed it to Carlos.
Okay, I think the idea is come back with 3 different options, you know, that kind of show the different setbacks, you know, for what we're talking about. So we can get an idea of what that looks like.
Well,
I don't think we
understand
need.
two of them. I don't understand the third one. What would be the what's mid in the car?
Carlos, you put that screen back.
Yes, sir.
Sure. The 3 different options, what you originally talked about, this corner up here. The next one would be kind of the midpoint, you know, up to that, you know, to that one. And then the third one would be what Carol wants, would be this up to that one.
So you have 1, 2, and 3
Correct,
behind this curvature.
correct. And then with that tilt that you're talking about, you know, potentially, and I'm sure sometimes, depending on where you put it, you may or may not be able to tilt it, but just, you know, if you can show what that's gonna look like, that would be helpful.
Okay. I think we're done.
Good. All right, thank you very much. Appreciate everybody in the audience. Appreciate all the comments. So, okay, we will move on now. Sorry for the delay and the extension, but I think we made some progress there, which I think is good. So we'll move on to other business and it's meeting minutes. Carlos, I see that we.
Chairman, do you have a set of meeting minutes in front of you for to
July
take it, I forgot that term. To take good, accept.
Okay, so,
Yes, there you go. Thank you.
yes.
Chairman,
Go ahead, Carol.
I'd like to acknowledge and accept the meeting minute for July the 20th, 2023, as presented.
Acknowledged. All right, so we'll move on to reports.
I would like to note though, because with the assistance of Ms. Dowdy, Mr. Cars will put this together and he's out of town today, but you guys are elucidating throughout this meeting. But he did an excellent job on that and I appreciate his efforts in there. Oh, no, it's not a spelling correction. It's just his terminology and use of words is like, whoa. Didn't realize you guys were that formal.
Neither did we.
Well, it makes us look better. Right?
Yes.
I like that. I like that. Good, good, good. All right. Carlos, you have, or who's going first? Carlos or Miss?
Just a couple of things. Of course, our new city manager starts on Monday, Miss Yackley, coming from Rock Hill. So we're excited for her to join us. She's also a certified planner. So that's a great thing. And I've known her for several years through the Missouri Planning Association, where she's an active member. So we're excited. And then, of course, she's a member of the ICMA, which is the city manager's side, an association, and also very active in that. So she comes in with a lot of credentials. Appreciate the council's efforts in there. They had excellent candidates, and I think this is a great one. And there, Olive Crossing started on the east side. We issued the first 9 occupancies in the apartment building, so you might see 9 lights if you head that way tonight. In there, we're moving really quickly to get into place in there. The construction site is frustrating. Not in the terms of it's more regarding the pace, but the one issue is that there is a utility pole at the southeast corner of Hilltop and Olive. So it's on their side, on the east side, and it's right in the middle of what would be the third bound lane. And it's been probably 3 months that we've been waiting for that pole to get relocated. And now all the utility companies have their hands full with the storms. So Ameren has removed their lines and now it's AT&T and Charter. And as you go across, you can see those. I thought it was just one single line, but no, it goes across towards the Chevy side over there. And as soon as that's removed, then somebody calls in the Charter, Ameren, to come back to remove the pole. And there, so it is interesting. And long story is the oversight, the authority, and the frustration you have with public utilities, which are kind of they're regulated by the Public Service Commission, and they're overwhelmed and kind of limited. So that is the biggest hiccup in this process. They started December 26th, just to keep that in mind. And we've already gone close to 7 months, or we're approaching our 7 months of construction there. So, but overall, within the site and the building, things are moving along. All the corridors, the lobby are fully accessible and occupiable. So now they're just working within units. And of course, we granted the first 9, or authorized the first 9 to be occupied in there. The developer is going to have an open house, and he has requested emails from the commission members to send out the invitations for those, and I would encourage you to consider attending in there. In addition to that, there was some changes that were done to the developers agreement for this site, and it looks like there will be a possibility that lots 1 and 2, which are the corner lots off of Price, will be combined for some type of grocer, and we'll see when that comes into the commission for review in there, and hopefully that would be within the next couple of months. There was an article in the St. Louis Post, the Business Journal, regarding the Paris Baguette. They're the first tenant that will take occupancy in the retail side, and there's the first location in the St. Louis region. So if you get an opportunity, if you get the journal, and I'll be glad to send the article. I sent it to council this morning. And they were excited about the location here, and also for the region. So it's moving along pretty well. Got an email from the developers that are doing the former Irvington and Rhyme, and there that they should be submitting for their building improvement plans by end of August in there. It'll take us a while to go through those reviews because they'll be pretty complex. But hopefully there'll be some activity on that side by early fall, which I'm sure they'd like to get foundations in before it gets too cold in the process. The city's also negotiations with the railroad corridor, the railroad who owns a corridor along the Dillman Price Industrial Park. It's since I started, they've been trying to acquire railroad right away to extend the trail system into the Hilltop Arrowhead neighborhood in there for the longest time. And it looks like it's almost coming to completion in there through the Great Rivers Greenway. And we're excited about that. Some property transfers will be taking place specifically along our Public Works building. The final decisions and the negotiations are being done with the railroad. And I guess that has to go through some federal process to get authorized in there, but all things are clear. And then the GRG is negotiating with a property on Dillman to get access from the railroad corridor to Dillman Road, which then you'd get into the Indian Meadows. And construction on that should be bid construction should be going out within the next month. And then construction on the multipurpose trail from Dillman all the way to our new community center, Five Oaks, should be hopefully by early next year. In there, or they'll be starting construction by early next year. In there, Five Oaks is already taking reservations. I think the staff is really excited that within the next 30-day or 45-day window, they'll have furniture move in and slowly occupying the space with probably more of a public opening sometime in October is what I would think based on the schedule in there. Works previously going on at Old Bonham School as they're trying to get ready before the school starts August 22nd in there. There's still a lot of interior work that they're working on in there. And we've granted some exceptions or extended hours for them to do inside work, primarily with the floors and getting all that ready. But that's exciting. If you've been across by Easy Storage, the retail component is starting to shape up in there. They were putting some brick on the on the east elevation. So it was looking pretty exciting in that process today. And then, the two special permits that were acted by the commission regarding the Great Heart Brewing Company and RP Exotics will be going to the council next week on the 8th, correct? August 8th. And I think that kind of wraps up all the updates I have. I'd be glad to answer any specific questions in there, but.
The retail site next to the first apartment complex, the old city hall site. How come it's still sitting there?
Yeah, well, at this point, I'm waiting for the new city manager then to have a sit down and discussion with the developer. I mean, they're still required to get that developed as part of the agreement.
Okay.
And there's some of it is more of the market.
Are they going to cut the weeds down?
They were done about a week ago in there. So it just took some pictures to get it going.
Good.
Don, do you have anything on the planning side?
I do not.
Okay.
Missy?
Thank you very much. Typically, Mr. Trejo does a great job wrapping things up and summarizing. It is exciting. The one thing I do want to add, and this is another thing that I'm going to say, if you can be here, please be here. So after Jennifer Yackley, the new city manager, has her first meeting with us on August 8th, August 9th will be coffee with the mayor at 8:45 in the morning. And so we would like for you to please come on, be a part of it. It'd be over with by 10. Meet Jennifer and let's get started with the next leader of the city. We're appreciative of the previous leader, but sometimes it's good. I love planners, so let's bring it on. With that, I really have nothing else to sit here and cover on your behalf. Thank you for what you do. It is, much appreciated. So with that, gavel.
Good. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll adjourn at 9:12.